I'm no longer on the ceiling, but I'm in this white tunnel. And I was on my back feet first in this tunnel, all bright white light, and I could see it very, very bright at the end. And I heard that humming vibration sound again. And I felt nothing but joy. And I felt like I'm going home. I'm going home. Like I was excited to get to the end.
So yes, Connie, thank you so much for being on the show today. So Connie is a highly evidential and respected certified psychic medium. You've been helping people connect with their deceased loved ones for over 2 decades now. You're certified by the Forever Family Foundation and helping parents heal. You are the award-winning author of the book You Are So Beautiful, which I'll link in the description below. And you had not one, not two, but three near-death experiences, because one is never enough. So,
Correct.
so thank you again for giving me the chance to speak to you today. And yeah, perhaps we could start by telling the audience a little bit about your three NDEs, and we'll go from there.
Sure, absolutely, and thanks for having me. So, I'm gonna just sort of back up by giving you the background to the NDE. So, I started having awareness to seeing and hearing spirit at the young age of 4. And so I saw an old man in my basement when I lived in New York. And then shortly after that, I thought my little stuffed animal was talking to me, but I was hearing spirit. And of course, I didn't understand it, being so young. And then when I started grade school, I just stopped hearing and seeing, but I always had this knowing. I just knew things. This served me very well going through school. I went all through high school pretty much as a straight A student because I just knew the answers. I didn't have to study. So that worked well for me. But these near death experiences for me were really to get me to remember who I was supposed to be this time in this body on this earth plane. And so my first one came in my early 20s. And this was an allergic reaction to medication. And I was at work, and it was in the middle of the summer. And people were walking by my desk and like saying, "Wow, you got a lot of sun, this weekend." And I had been out, laying by the pool over the weekend. So I was like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah." And then like two, three, four, everybody's commenting and how like much sun I got. I'm like, "What is going on?" So I go into the bathroom to go, look at myself like, this is strange. And when I got into the bathroom, I could see, I was like, oh my God, I was beet red. I was so red. And then I like, was looking, I lifted up my shirt, I was all blotchy. And then very soon after, I started having trouble breathing. So luckily, a coworker came in to check on me. And by this time, I was like sitting on the floor in the bathroom, like gasping for air. And she called, 911. The ambulance came. I get to the hospital. I remember getting kind of checked in, and the next thing you know is I find myself in this big white space, kind of like the background I'm in right now, but it was very bright and glowing and no ceilings, floors, windows, walls, just a white space. And I was kind of floating in that space with my legs crossed in front of me, kind of sitting, even though there was no floor. And I kept hearing this like this, I call it white noise, like this humming vibration sound that just went through my whole body. And all of a sudden, this non-human entity, this very tall being walked towards me, all illuminated in light, and put this very big book in my lap. And this book looked like the binding looked old, like leather, but the pagements were like parchment paper they were glowing. And as I looked down at the book, it just opened up and the pages started flipping. And I could see from the time I was born till present day. And I saw all memories and the people I interacted with and those emotions that I felt. And so everything it was calm, it was beautiful, it was peaceful, I felt love. And then when it came to present day, I came out of it. And I was discharged the next day. I had gone into a state of anaphylaxis. They gave me the medication. I was okay and stable. And when I went home, I told my mom about, this dream that I had. And, it was describing these events like under the age of 3, like with vivid detail, like what was on the dining room table, what painting was hanging on the wall, like who was there, what they were dressed like. And she validated these were my memories. So I didn't know at the time, this was, like mid 80s, when this happened, not a lot of talk about near death experiences or anything like that, back then. And I didn't come from a frame of reference, a household that talked about, these types of things. So I had no idea that I actually had a near death experience in the form of a life review.
Wow. How wonderful. And what's great is that it has been verified by your mother. So how did she take it as you were, giving her information that you are not really supposed to
Well,
know?
yeah, it was interesting. My mom was an interesting person. She didn't believe in this. And it wasn't until the very end of her life, there were a series of events. Like I would talk about it, when I started becoming a medium, and she was just, she just didn't really get it. All right. I don't even think she was interested in it. And I don't know what she thought. So it wasn't something that we kind of could really talk about, But towards the end of her life, especially when my dad had passed, because I had actually predicted the day my father would pass two
Oh, wow.
years before he passed.
Wow.
And then I was telling her things that would happen. He finally started to realize it, and when she came close to her own passing, I think she really began to understand. But when I told her, I think she just thought, "Oh, yeah, that's a cool dream." She didn't read too much into it, She didn't really have any input on it. She just listened and was like, "Oh, yeah, that's nice."
As most people do. That's great.
Right.
And would you like to share your second NDE?
Yeah, and I want to also mention that after this, so each of my 3 near-death experiences were, maybe different from a lot of people who experience near-death experiences where they see loved ones, they have, all this insight or about future stuff. Mine were solely to get me to wake up, to reclaim those gifts I was born with being that connection, between the physical and spiritual realms. So after my first near death experience, I started experiencing frequent episodes of sleep paralysis. And for people that don't know what that is, that's when you're kind of caught between the dreaming and wakening state and you're frozen. And a lot of times it can be terrifying. Like you want to move, you want to scream, right? But you can't, you're stuck. And for me, it would always happen in the same way. I would, go into this, I'd be laying on my bed, on my back, this would come over me, but all of a sudden, I would see myself in spirit form come out of my body and try to pull my physical body up. And I'd hear that white noise vibration sound again, and I'd hear a voice repeating over and over again. You need to raise yourself up. You need to raise yourself up. And this was the constant theme every time I had these episodes. So, of course, I come out of it thinking, yeah, I need to raise myself up. I can't move. I was like, what? That's weird. Like, why am I hearing that? Well, I know now, several years later, over 20 years later, as I became a medium, because to be a medium and connect to the other side, you need to raise yourself up, your vibration, your energy to connect to the high energy field of the afterlife. So my soul, my team of light, my guides were literally giving me the keys, to the afterlife to do the connection again. Like, remember who you are, raise yourself up. But I didn't get the message because I didn't understand it. So near death experience number two comes along a couple years later. And so this time they really gave it to me in this one. It was, more medically intensive. I was working in New York City at the time, and, I had a 2-hour commute by the train. It was awful, and then I had to walk a little bit. Yeah. It was like a cool, March morning, and I hadn't been feeling well, and I was taking some allergy medicine. And anyway, by the time I got to work, I was sweaty and clammy, and it was cool outside. And my heart felt like it was racing, and I felt dizzy. I just didn't feel well. And when I got to work, my coworker just looked at me. She's like, "Oh, you look awful." And I was like, "Yeah, I don't feel good. I feel like I'm gonna pass out or something." So she ran and got the manager, and I must have looked really awful because they looked at me, and he's like, "She's gotta go to the hospital." So thank God, they didn't call the ambulance because I was working in Midtown Manhattan. It was first thing in the morning. I don't know if an ambulance would have been able to get through that traffic and to me in time, but this company had its own car service, and so they had, like, a town car waiting, like, right nearby, so they called them, and they literally wheeled me out in my office chair on the wheels, into the elevator, down, into the street, into the back of the car. And as I'm in the back of the car, my heart is like pounding and pounding. And I just knew I was gonna go. I just felt it. And I took out a napkin that I had in my pocketbook and I wrote my parents' name and the phone number on it. And my coworker had come with me in the back of the car, and I told her, call my parents and tell them that I love them because I thought I'm not gonna make it.
Mm.
And so we get to the hospital, and I remember, people coming out, getting on a stretcher, being wheeled into the emergency room, and, all lights and beeping and everybody all around me. And then the next thing you know is I'm floating on the ceiling in spirit form, watching my body, on the stretcher and watching them, stick the IV in me, doing all sorts of stuff. And as I'm watching, I see the doctor grab the defibrillator paddles off the wall, and then he starts shocking my body, and I see my body jumping, off the table. And then he does that a couple times, and then all of a sudden, I'm no longer on the ceiling, but I'm in this white tunnel. And the tunnel I always describe, if anybody's had an MRI, a closed MRI, that's what it felt like to me. It was small for me, okay? I was very enclosed in it. And it felt like if you've ever been to like Disney World, like a simulation ride, like kind of going like that, where you're going fast, but you're actually going slow type of feeling. And I was on my back feet first in this tunnel, all bright white light, and I could see it very, very bright at the end. And I was excited. And I heard that humming vibration sound again. And I felt nothing but joy. And I felt like I'm going home. I'm going home. Like I was excited to get to the end. As I got closer to the end, my feet sunk into that very, very bright light, which I call the glow. And they sunk in as if it were jello. They kind of just imprinted in. And at that moment, it was like, whoop, I got like zipped back, and the defibrillators finally worked, so my heart started beating again. So I woke up like the next day, and I had no idea what happened to me because I'm in the hospital bed. I had my wrists were all bandaged, and I'm like, why are my wrists like bandaged up? Because they were testing for the arterial blood gases and stuff. And the doctor came in and told me that I had gone into ventricular cardiac arrest. And I was very fortunate to get to the hospital when I did. And so I stayed there for a couple days. They did all sorts of tests because they had no explanation of why this would happen to a healthy, young
For
female with
any Sunday,
no
yeah, exactly.
right.
Yeah.
And I didn't find out till over 10 years later what happened to me, just again by chance, but not by chance because nothing's by chance. When I happened to be, I don't know, on the internet or doing something, and I came across this allergy medicine that I was taking was removed from the market because it was found to cause rapid heartbeats and even death when it was mixed with certain medications. And that's what happens to me.
That's brilliant. And how about your third near-death experience?
Yeah. And so, again, getting to how these near death experiences were trying to awaken me. After the second near death experience, I went back to work in New York City shortly after. And all of a sudden, on a couple weeks after that, just randomly on my lunch hour, I walked a different way. I had a routine, always stuck to the routine, but one day I just walk in a different direction. And I came across a psychic store, and it had big, glowing psychic. I had no idea, never been to a psychic, but I was drawn in. And I said to the man at the front desk, hey, what goes on here? And he's like, oh, these people tell your future, your fortune. And I was like, oh yeah, I want to do that. So I signed up for like a 15-minute reading on my lunch hour. And as I was getting this reading, of course, this lady was telling me nothing about nothing, which, fortunately is the sad truth about many psychics and mediums. The frauds are more prevalent than the real ones, okay? But there are a lot of good ones out there. But anyway, I knew on a soul level that this somehow like was part of me. I was, drawn to this. So in 1991, I bought my first deck of tarot cards from this place. And I said to myself, because what was happening also, I forgot to mention this, as I was commuting into the city on the train for a couple hours, or if I had to take a bus, wherever I had to go, as I was sitting next to people, I started hearing names and seeing like little visions. And so I finally started to ask questions. And if somebody was sitting next to me and it was a gentleman, I'd hear Thomas, I'd say, "Oh, do you look familiar? Is your name Thomas?" Because I didn't want to look like a real weirdo, right? He would say, "Oh, no." He said, "But that was my father's name and he's passed." So this kept happening. And as I got close to people, their dead relatives would come to me. And I didn't understand it. I'm like, well, this is weird. So I buy the tarot cards thinking, well, maybe I could use these and figure out what's going on with me. But when I got them home, I read the little instruction manual once, twice, three times, and nothing clicked with me. It did not resonate with me. And like I said, I all through school, I could read a book like this in half an hour and ace a test. I retain everything, but I could not do anything with this little sheet of explanations for these cards. It just went out of my mind. I couldn't retain it. So I became very frustrated with it. I am admittedly a true Gemini. If it doesn't hold my attention more than about 5 minutes, I'm done with it. So these cards went into this box of junk that I kept. I didn't have the heart to throw them all, and they stayed there for over 10 years. Okay. And during those 10 years, I had to do a lot of soul growth and evolution because I stopped at some point because of factors in my life, negative factors, negative people. I stopped getting this intuition. Okay. And I went through this soul progression levels. There were 5 of them, and I document that in my book, and I use my story, how I moved through these soul levels of progression to get back and remember who I was truly meant to be. So, about over 10 years later, it was an after effect to surgery, and, I all of a sudden, I'm laying in the bed recuperating, and the next thing you know, I'm in these rolling clouds. And then the clouds move away. I'm in this beautiful green meadow and beautiful flowers. The sun is bright. Everything is high intensity color, just beautiful. When these little children come running towards me and they're like kindergarten age and they grab my hands on either side and we form a circle and we start singing and dancing, in a circle, all happy and full of joy. And I'm singing this song, in some other language. It's not a language I learned on the earth plane, okay? But I know it, and I'm happy, and I'm joyful, and singing and dancing. And then all of a sudden, the children stop, and they come on either side of me, and they look forward, and I see a man coming towards me. Now, being raised Roman Catholic and gone to Catholic school for, first through eighth grade, this man I recognized to be Jesus, okay? And as he walks towards me, um, he stands in front of me, and the thing that I take away from this experience most of all, is the way that he looked at me. His eyes were so incredible, and it wasn't like when somebody like stares at you or looks through you, but when he looked at me, his eyes changed colors like the ocean. It was like blue and green and teal and gold and brown, and they just kept changing. But I knew that I was loved. And I knew that Jesus knew me not in this life, not as a human, but as a soul on every level and aspect of my soul. Okay. So, and this just was like, it just filled me. I can't even explain the love that I felt, the intensity of it. And he said to me, "Do you like it here?" And I said, "Well, I love it here." But at this time, because of all the work I've had to do for the last 10 years, I am now a single mom of two small boys. And I look around and I say, "Where are my children?" And he says, "Well, it's not their time yet." And I said, "Okay." And then the little children around me grab my hands and they start singing and dancing, and I'm happy again. And then they stop again. And then Jesus asks me again, "Do you like it here?" I said, "I love it here. But where are my children?" And then he says, "Well, it's not their time, and it's not your time either. You have yet to become who you were meant to be." And with that, I wake up.
Thank you for sharing, Connie. This is brilliant. So we know that NDEs tend to, let's say, unlock some latent abilities, and one of the after effects is mediumship. So, do you think anyone could unlock mediumship, or that's a consequence of your NDEs?
That's a good question. So I believe we all, through giving the proper tools and training, can learn how to make a connection on the other side. In fact, I teach classes doing that for beginners, because the mediumship is just not for, to become a medium, but it's also for those people that want to know how to connect to their own loved ones. Okay. But having said that, of course, I feel some people are natural born mediums like I am, and some people just have a higher propensity for this type of ability than others. But I feel like everybody can do it to a certain degree if you open yourself up to it and you know the proper techniques.
Would you have any advice for beginners to perhaps start to connect with the afterlife?
Absolutely. So the number one question I get is, "Oh, my loved one passed. In the first couple days, I felt them near me, and now it's been a year. I don't feel them anymore, or I can't feel them." And that's because in order to do this work, as I mentioned, your vibration has to be high. Okay, so the spirit world has to lower theirs a little bit, right? We have to higher, and where we come in the middle is how we can communicate. A lot of the times people are still too far in their grief, which is understandable, but they're sad. And they try to do this connection in a moment where they're feeling heavy and sad and down.
Interesting.
And that doesn't lend well, okay, to this work. So you have to find a way to first quiet your mind, but find a way that raises your vibration. Whether it's for me, I like to listen to upbeat music. I
Mm.
like the 80s dance music, 90s dance music. Okay. It's a little unusual. I don't meditate. It's a little strange, but that's how I meditate. So if I'm doing a large group, you'll see me dancing and singing, I
That's
call it
brilliant.
dancing with spirit, because that brings my vibration high. It may be yoga, it may be painting, it may be also I walk and I ride an e-bike. So I like to go, and that's where my mind just zones out and I'm relaxed and I give thanks and and then I get a lot of information, and also in the car, which is probably not a good thing. But you're zoned out, right? You know how like when athletes like run, they're in the zone, or it's the same principle. You just kind of your mind just quiets out. But you have to find a way to raise that vibration in order to make that connection.
That's great. So, you also talk about a story which I found really fascinating about synchronicities. So, if I told you the number 444, what comes up?
Yeah, so that's my number for my dad. And so a few years before he passed, I was in a college. Visiting a college with my son, right, he was getting an award, and so I took my father, with me. So my father, we had talked before this, came from Calabria, Italy. He had a 4th grade education, and my son was the first one in the family to go to college, and I don't think
Wow.
he ever understood or knew college, so I said, "I'm bringing my father to see this." It was a nice experience. So in the hotel room that night, I woke up and I looked at the clock and it was 4:44. And I thought, "Oh, okay," just kinda stood, but then it started coming. over and over again, like ridiculous. I mean, like in the craziest places, like all the time. So I started journaling it and intuitively, because I was with my dad, I felt like somehow it was connected to my dad. Now, I'm going to say when you see numbers, that does not mean it predicts death or anything like that. I'm highly intuitive. I just knew my spirit team was alerting me that this somehow was connected to my dad. So when I read, I give months, months equals numbers. So 4 equals April, and 4 and 4 and 4 is 12. So I journal, what does April 12th mean? 2 years later, my father passed on April 12th.
Oh, wow.
So, I knew it was coming, and when he went on hospice, for a few months, I remember talking to the hospice nurse who was making the plan for care, and, we were in the month of April, and I said, "Well, we won't need anything past April 12th," and of course, she looked at me like I was crazy, which, I'm used to it, and my mother just kinda, like, gave me the look like, "Connie, enough of that," you know what I mean? And sure enough, you had to see the look on her face when that morning came along and she looked at me and she's like, "Are you serious?" I'm like, "Yeah."
No, I bet.
And I continually to get signs from him, very impactful signs, at a moment one incident is my husband and I were driving and, he had, a bunch of stuff in the back of the truck and then 2 cars were moving at the same time to merge into the lane in front of us, and we were kinda trapped with nowhere to go going at a high speed, and he just said, "Hold on, we're gonna hit," like, and he swerved and I just remember closing my eyes like, "Oh my god," bracing for the impact, and I saw my father's face, and it was interesting because after it all happened, it was like, "Oh my god, we didn't get hit, like, how did that happen? Like, it's impossible." And I said to myself, "So strange, I didn't see the 444." So we moved, we came to a stoplight in front of us, and the car in diagonally from us moved to the next lane, and then in front of that car was the license plate 444. So I knew and in fact, it has come through with another medium in a reading. She said, "Your father helped from the other side to avoid a car accident." Like I'm like, absolutely, absolutely.
Wow, how wonderful. So, in your book, you also talk about finding your soul's true purpose. So, obviously, I don't expect you to summarize the whole book in the time we have available today, but could you give us perhaps an idea of what people can do to try and find their purpose?
Sure. Right. Absolutely. So my team of clients shared with me these 5 soul levels of progression. And basically what that is your attitude toward what your true purpose is. So I've learned and everybody, has had experiences where certain things have happened, certain people have come into your life, certain, instances, maybe you thought they were hard lessons, but maybe they were blessings, right? Because the universe and your soul, your team of light is always trying to guide you on your true path. So you may be falling into a category of soul progression, which I have called solitudes. Okay. And there are 5 of them. So it's important to know where you are because I'll give you one example. You could be in a solitude because, and I'm going to use one called the compromised is one of the solitudes. I was in the compromised solitude because I had figured out I had been tested, I had passed the Forever Family certification, and I wanted to do this work full time, right? But I was compromised because I had a 9 to 5 job that paid well, had my benefits, right? And I just didn't wanna break away and do this and take, chances on not having a solid income. So I was compromised in doing my true purpose. I also was taking care of parents at the time, had family responsibilities. So I couldn't get to where I wanted to do until the right time. And then a couple years ago, things fell into place. I was able to leave corporate job and now Now I'm back to the solitude, which I call the clear, which is you clearly know your life's purpose and you're living that life. Okay. So it's important to know where you are. You may be in a solitude because you're in a relationship and that person has issues, whether it's addiction, whether it's mental issues, and there's some financial issues. There could be something going on preventing you from moving forward. Okay. It's your choice. And I experienced a lot of these solitudes, and I had to make some hard choices in my life to break away from people, from jobs, from things to get back to where I was. Because when I was closed off from all of this, I went through almost 10 years with nothing. I didn't see, I didn't hear, because my vibration was low
Yes.
because I chose to be the victim instead of, breaking out. And it took a lot of work. And I finally, stepped slowly but surely, like peeling back an onion. I got back, and the three near death experience pushed me, to discover, okay, this is who you're supposed to be. This is your purpose here in your life.
Yeah, I can so relate. There's so many little lessons over and sometimes big ones of detachment that we need to go
Right.
through in this human experience. So that's brilliant, Connie. If I was to ask you, what's the biggest lesson that you learned from your NDEs? What would that be?
Yeah, well, there's a couple. One, is the love on the other side, right? I just felt the love and the peace and the joy. So the fear, and I'm a human being. Do I want to, pass? No, I want to be with my family, right? So that fear of leaving your family, that's natural. But the actual fear of the afterlife, I do not have. Okay. And the other thing, through the near death experiences, what I've learned is that getting these kicks, that your soul team, like I said, the universe, if it's your soul, is calling, it'll keep calling. Okay. So it's important to kind of be open to this and recognize the signs, okay, and the synchronicities that are happening, and kind of look back at your life and say, oh my God, yeah, I went through this terrible time, but look what happened. I got here. Like, I had to go through this bad time to get to, to be this person that I am. So it's kind of taking you out of, like I said, the victim mentality and realizing that these experiences are life lessons, whether hard or not, they're all lessons for us here.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, I'm curious, what's your idea of God these days?
Yeah, so that's it. That's a good question. I get asked a lot about that because of, having a Catholic background. Um, I just mentioned I believe in reincarnation, because I know it to be true from my experience. A lot of these things, like with faith, is you just take it for granted. It's a belief versus I've experienced this, right? I'm fortunate to be on the other end of it and have experienced it, so it only further impacts my belief system. I believe in God. I believe in a higher being. I believe all cultures, all religions, have a person that they refer to as God. I believe them to be one and the same. I believe it to be a higher energy. I believe we all go to the same place, to the afterlife. So big disparity, and every time I say this, I feel my sister Patricia, my teacher in second grade, smacking me on the head with a ruler. But there's no heaven and hell. It's a vibration. It's a state of being. We all go to the same place. We just vibrate differently in our level of energy and our level of soul progression.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. That's great. Why do you think then God made us in the first place?
Yeah, I think I think about life, right? And I use life as an acronym. So life, L, look, I, inwards, F, for E, everything.
Ooh, I
Look
love that.
inwards for everything, okay? And I think we were all created to, again, understand the human experience and to grow and evolve from this because these are all lessons, like what I said, good, bad, or different. And I think it's, I'll go even further out and say that. I don't think it's just for human beings. I'm sure there's other species out there kind of doing the same thing, their own involvement on some other different level. But that's what our purpose is, to learn. Again, it's a school. It's a
Mhm.
school.
Well, that ties in nicely with the last question I like to ask my guests. What's the meaning of life?
Yeah. The look inwards for everything. That's it. You have to be brave enough, okay, to look really deep into your soul and say, what brings me joy? So many people live their lives for the pleasure of others, okay? They want to help everybody or do things or be that person that everybody else depends on, and then they don't have their own self, okay? So self-love, self-care, self-empowerment, it's all very important, okay? You sometimes have to, like I had to, peel back that onion. I was the, overweight, made fun of, shy, extremely introvert girl with no friends, okay? Very hardly just a handful of friends. I went through most of my life like that. That's not who I truly was, but I was bound by all these things, these factors that, outside factors, outside people, which turned on my own self-esteem. And I had to break out of that, to find out who I truly was. I had to be brave enough to make some tough life choices. And that's what you have to do. You have to look and say, what brings me joy? Okay. And live a life that, incorporates that.
That's great, Connie. Well, I had an idea, but I do understand that this is not it's not the purpose of this interview. So if you don't feel this is the right place, you can just let me know, and absolutely, it's not a problem. But I was wondering, perhaps you'd be able to give us a very quick demonstrations of your skills. I have some loved ones which they passed on. This is the first time we talk, so you know nothing about my
Sure.
story, and people cannot find this information online. So
Okay.
I don't know. Is that something that
Sure.
resonates?
I can
Yeah.
give it a whirl. I didn't prepare, but we'll give it a whirl.
Oh,
All
that'll be
right.
great. Wow.
So,
Okay.
as I'm thinking about you, Danny, there is a younger male here that passed for you. Okay. I feel like he passed under the age of 50. I feel like he was here 1 minute and gone the next. Do you understand this?
Yeah, spot on. Yeah.
Okay. Yep. So he's coming first, okay? And he feels to me like he's saying, I didn't have a chance to say goodbye. Okay. And I feel also that in some way he feels responsible for what happened to him. Do you understand that?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. I feel him. They showing me while he's here, he had a bit of a struggle. So I feel him to be up and down. Sometimes I get this feeling for depression, addiction, just this heaviness. Do you understand that?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, and he's
Wow.
coming through. This feels like a friend or a cousin, like we're on the same level. You understand
It
that?
was a good friend of mine. Yes, one of my mentors.
Yeah. So he's like I said, he's very, very much around you, okay? And I feel like he's um it's interesting because I feel him to be very patient and I also feel him to be very insightful. Okay. So it's just kind of showing me a little bit about his personality. And then he keeps showing me this big, and I could see books like behind you, but he wants to emphasize the books around you. Do you understand that? Or did he write a book or he
Yeah.
suggested books for you to read?
He did actually. No, no, both. To be honest. Yeah, yeah. He was
Okay,
a writer.
perfect. Yep. So
Well done.
yeah, he wants to bring the emphasis of that. And then also, I have to talk about, did you have a cat that passed? There's a cat here.
No, I've never owned a cat actually.
Okay. Do you have a cat now?
No, I don't. The mother of my child, they have two cats in their house, but
Okay,
we
there's the cats. Okay, yeah,
okay.
I know there was cats that belonged to you. They're acknowledging the cats, but I feel like there was one that passed. That you had one that I don't know broke
Actually,
your
no,
arm.
you're right.
There's a
They're
cat.
not my son. Yeah, there was a cat who passed a few years ago.
Yeah,
That's right.
the cat is
Yeah.
up there. He's watching the other cats that are still there, so I
Wow.
see the cat. But also, do you have a gentleman that was like a father figure to you that passed?
Yeah, so this mentor of mine, he was like my math
This
teacher, he was
mentor's
my
a
best friend.
okay, so
Yes.
he's still talking then. Yeah, I feel like a father, right, to you.
Yeah.
Now also, you keep showing me the guitar. So who plays the guitar?
I'm a guitarist. Guitar has been a big part of my
Okay,
life. Yeah.
okay, yeah, so he's watching you, okay? The other thing that's interesting is, and again, I don't know a lot about you. I know you're Italian, but he's telling me you speak another language too, besides English. There's another language that
I
you
do.
speak. You
I'm
understand
I'm
that?
I'm half German, so yeah, I speak a bit of
Oh,
Italian.
okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So again, he's very strong around you. But again, I have this grandmother figure too that I want to acknowledge as well. Okay. And she's representing just like the strength of family. That's what I feel with her. I also have the here, come back with this M name. Now they're telling me no, you got it wrong. It's a female, Marie, Mary. There's an MA name.
Yeah, spot on again. My grandma was called Maria. That's right.
That's it. Yeah, see, she corrected me. She's like, "You were saying and I was like, "It went fast. I saw the M." And so, yeah, see, she was
Wow.
the one talking. So, yeah, so she's just confirming that, but they're very, very much around you. Did you ever do anything in like the financial field? Because they're showing me with this mind for analytics, and
Yeah.
they're kind of like showing you now doing this, and they're like, wow, 360, 360. Like you went from a mind of analytics to the metaphysical world, like,
Yeah,
and
I've
so
been wow,
just,
spot
yeah,
on again.
and especially this gentleman, there's a P name as well. Is there a Paul, Peter?
Paolo. That's it. That's
Okay,
the
so
mentor's name.
that's his name?
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah,
Wow.
that's it. Yeah. So he, like I say, he's very, very strong around you. So I'm gonna leave him and your grandmother and your cat with all their love.
Wow. Thank you so much, Connie.
Yeah.
this is brilliant, and I can attest to that. This is quite something. So I'll make sure I
Well,
obviously.
for on the fly, not preparation, that's what you got. So
Yeah, yeah. No, no, that's great. Thank you so much. I'm so grateful. You cannot imagine. This is brilliant. Well, Connie, I had such a lovely conversation. I was wondering if you had any parting messages you'd like to leave the audience with today.
sure. And I always say this, just know your loved ones never go away. They walk beside you every day. Those bonds of love are eternal and they can never be broken.
Wow, Connie, thank you so much. Keep up the good work. I can see that you know what you're doing. So as I say, I'm so grateful for the opportunity, and yeah, I wish you all the best. Bye for now.
Thank you.
Thank
Take care
you.
now.
Hi there. Well, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video and want to support the Ernst community, please leave a like, subscribe, and maybe share with the ones you love. New episodes are out each Friday. Until then, enjoy this dream we all call life and live the love you wish to see in the world. Bye for now.